7:31. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the T-Bone and Heather Show, and welcoming into the studio, Evan Slaughenhoupt.
Now we have the correct pronunciation. Thank you so much, and I just love that you have it on your literature to campaign.
Well, I'm sure you've been battling that your whole life.
You have a phonetic spelling there.
Funny when you mentioned that. I got to tell you a quick story, and that was I was growing up in a family of multiple kids, and I was known by a family nickname. First day, first grade school, go into the classroom, teacher points at my desk and comments about how long a strip of paper she had to use for my name.
Right.
And she said, and I decided to use the name Evan for you, okay? That was the first time I had my first name. I thought in first grade, the teacher's the one that gives you your first name. I was so thrilled with that. I was like, oh, I like that name, and I didn't worry about the last name.
Slaughenhoupt, and you are a current Calvert County Commissioner,
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, it's interesting because you heard the caller earlier. You were listening to the show, and you heard, let's get this out of the way.
Let me for folks that weren't listening, this is what a caller asked. So I'm going to, and I wrote it down. So I'll read it to you as he said it. Okay. Why did he vote against Calvert High School funding?
Very good.
But voted to increase the office space at the government center over there.
Thank you very much. He was referring to what's in political terms called a hit piece.
Okay.
Now, this hit piece came out this past week. And what a hit piece does is it distorts your record. Let's talk about the 2 points. The one being the courthouse.
Right.
That hit piece does not tell you is that the governor appointed an additional judge to the circuit court.
Calvert County's getting another judge.
Yes, and we did. We already have him. Judge
Right.
Chan Lee is on board. So all 5 commissioners in open session voted to put in a new courtroom. We had to. There's no option.
Right.
So they were talking $500,000. I think I recall on air saying it's about $1 million per judge. I know that upsets some of the other judges, but if you look at the impact, it's not just constructing a new courtroom.
You're moving around offices.
But we're moving
and
offices
stuff,
and everybody else.
Sure.
So that was that one piece.
Okay.
The other piece was when it talked about the school system. We as a commissioners, we vote on 4 budgets because it's 1 budget per year. The first budget I voted for because it was essentially the previous board's budget.
Okay.
And we only tweaked at the end. The second 2 years, I voted against the budget, but it was because of the process. To me, it wasn't as transparent, it wasn't as open as it should be, and I, on principle, voted against that budget. Now, you can construe anything that was in those 2 years' budget as me having voted against, but that's, in fact, not the case in reality.
You didn't think that those budgets were as transparent as they should have been, so you voted against them.
On those 2 years. Now, this final budget I voted for because of the following reason. Every budget meeting that the Board of County Commissioners had with the staff was on air, on television, on video.
Recorded.
And it was, the citizens could see the same data that we were seeing as Board of County Commissioners. So we actually improved transparency in that regard. And that hit piece was simply a means to sort of misinform voters.
You know, Evan, I am so curious, and I'm glad you're in here, because I wanted to talk to you about something that we've not only talked about a lot on the air, but other politicians that come in there talking about. And it is, and I don't know what you can, I'm going to give you a lot of leeway here because I don't know what you can talk about, what you can't. And that is Dominion.
Sure.
And the issues that are going on right now with the judges and ruling against the county commissioners on certain things, voting for. I mean, do I have that right? I mean, what's going on?
I understand the premise.
Did you guys drop the ball legally on some things?
No, ma'am. Let me give you the, let me explain what was happening.
Let's hear it.
When you try to be,
I know.
When you try to be really open, sometimes things appear to backfire. And here's what happened.
Okay.
Our county staff does not currently perform inspections of the operations at the Calvert County Nuclear Cliffs. We don't have that expertise.
Okay.
Our county staff does not currently provide the kinds of inspections on the operations of the operational activity on the import facility, Dominion.
Right.
Now,
For the same reason.
For the same reason. We just don't have that expertise.
Sure. Okay.
And so now they're going to shift operations from import to export. Our county staff still did not have that same type of expertise.
Who does monitor that from a safety standpoint?
FERC?
It really is federal inspectors involved. You know, there are federal inspectors on site at Calvert Cliffs.
Sure.
You expect that you're going to have that level of scrutiny underway at these kinds of operations. So what we were doing was we were really just applying the same what would you call it, the same standard to this operation as we did previously.
Right.
And then, the ruling came out. It was sort of a mixed ruling, as always are.
Right.
Right. And even the judge himself said that his ruling had no effect onto whether
Dominion would but it lends itself to I think people see a ruling like that and then they get concerned about what are they pulling over there? You know what I mean?
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
I bet your phone was ringing off the hook.
Well, that comes with the territory, and that's quite all right. I have another life that I work in the intelligence community.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
I did. I've been there since I was 18. So
go ahead, tell us something secret.
Yeah, sure.
What do you know?
And I tell you that because I know what I can speak about in public and what I cannot. Mm-hmm. And let's say your radio station decided it was going to have some real expanded business.
Sure.
That's proprietary information that you have.
Right.
And let's say you need to share some information with public officials. So a standard practice in business is to sign non-disclosure
statements
to protect that proprietary information.
Of course.
And this is no different with the Dominion. The difference is two things. One, we're talking about a $3.8 billion effort. Now, what commissioner wants to blurt out something and cause a catastrophe and then tell the citizens why that $3.8 billion improvement to the county is not coming?
Have you signed a non-disclosure with any other business in Calvert County? Do you have one with Calvert Cliffs?
My recollection is no, not signed one because there's been no real big expansion like that. But we do, and there's prescribed within state law, there's about 14 categories where we discuss things in executive session.
Right.
Obvious things like personnel, contracts.
That you can't talk about outside of that room.
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly right. And so we are bound to honor those commitments.
Let me speak in very generic terms when it comes to Dominion. By which, and I will put cards on the table here, I'm a big supporter of. I think it's a great thing to have come to the area. But set that aside for a second.
Put a pin in that.
Put a pin in that, as I say. Several people who are running for various offices have come in here and said, and I don't really have the information to debate them on this, but they've said, listen, a whole bunch of special measures were put in place and things were waived. And Dominion was allowed to get permits and so on and so forth that other companies and businesses wouldn't be allowed to get. And they made all these special concessions, they being the commissioners, made all these special concessions for Dominion. And they are, at the very least, favoritism and possibly illegal. Let's just speak in generic terms. Didn't any of that happen?
Sounds like great politics talking.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for those saying that, it simply is not true. There is prescribed in law an ability and a duty, in fact, for the commissioners to engage in potential tax incentives.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, because Dominion got huge tax breaks. This is what I hear. Huge tax breaks from the county commissioner when they're not giving anything to the local little guy.
Yeah. Well, there's a reason for that. In a sense.
Okay.
One is a public utility, and you can't really tax public utility based on the value of the property like you do normal property tax. It's very, very difficult. There is in law a provision that if a business is coming into the county and they're going to expand business and like spend over $2.5 million or employ a certain number of people for a certain number of years, we're authorized to talk about a payment in lieu of taxes type of activity.
Okay.
So what's really happening here is, here's what your choice is. Are you going to insist Dominion pay some full fare, some inflated figure, and have them say, well, fine, we'll just go elsewhere?
Right.
Or are you going to work and find the right balance on what the right taxing in revenue should be? Mm-hmm. So what we end up talking about is, in one hand, if they go away, they no longer will export. They will no longer import. That's going away. So now, on a $240 million a year budget, you're going to take a $15 million a year hit because they're going to close shop.
Right.
I gotcha.
So we're talking the difference of from minus $15 million a year to a plus $40 million a year in revenue.
Okay.
So and that was in our purview to discuss and engage to try to get the best financial arrangement for our citizens, and that's what we did.
All right, and that's Dominion. Let's talk about schools.
Sure.
How are the, because we got information from the Calvert County Board of Education. This was months and months ago, where they were talking about working to rule. And we're not going to do homework. We're not going to call parents. We're going to work 7.5 hours a day, what our contract states. How is the relationship with the Calvert County Commissioners and the school board and the teachers over in Calvert County?
Well, I would say it's a mixed relationship, and any relationship, things will ebb and flow.
That's
correct?
a very nice way to say it, Evan. Mixed relationship.
There was an excellent relationship with the Board of Education for a number of years, and I credit that largely to the funding formula that was in place. It provided the Board of Ed with a predictability of revenue.
Is that formula not in place anymore?
It expired, and during our term, we were trying to revise it. It couldn't be the same formula because, frankly, economic conditions were not the same the past 4 years than previously.
Well, is a portion of that, or is all of that the fact that now a portion of the teacher's pension has now been shifted to the county?
That is exactly one part of it, in that people fail to tell you that the state continues to walk away from their responsibility, and dumps that onto the counties.
Right.
And so we're having to. So those multi-million dollars a year expenses that could have gone to teacher salaries are now going to their pensions,
right,
from the same taxpayers who were sending that money to the state.
We're talking with Evan Slaughenhoupt, who is a current county commissioner and would like to continue on in that job. So in Calvert County. So you got the teachers, and some of them are not too happy with things. They're not getting the raises they think they should get. And a lot of that goes back to this whole pension thing.
Sure.
How do you bridge that?
Sure. Two things. First of all, one is I agree the teacher's not paid enough. But I will tell you also, you're not paid enough.
I agree.
I'm not paid enough.
Right.
In fact, and with the overall economy being down throughout the country, everyone is in a more dire economic condition than they were in previous years. And that's the new reality that we are living with. And until economic policies in Washington and Annapolis change, I don't see any improvement in the economy going forward. So what we've had to do was to sort of just kind of hold the line and continue with the thought in mind that better times are ahead. Better times are ahead in a number of ways, depend on who the voters elect this November at the national and state level. Things could start improving. And better times ahead with hopefully successfully implementing the Dominion import will help us as well. I think you had another part of the question, but I can't remember exactly what it was.
One of the things that I've talked about with everybody who's come in here is the infrastructure in Southern Maryland. And it is woefully behind. Now, in Calvert County, you have a unique situation in that, let's say, God forbid, something happened at the nuke plant. How do you get everybody out of there?
I mean, especially with the bridge, the way the bridge is.
The bridge is, I mean, it's not. It really isn't capable of handling the day-to-day traffic, let alone an emergency.
Do you guys talk about that in your meetings? Do you talk about how to get people out of Calvert?
Yes, two things on that. One is the number one transportation priority we have working with the state. It's going to take state and federal involvement. It's replacing the Thomas Johnson Bridge with more lanes.
That's
number one.
Got to happen.
That's a no-brainer, right?
Right.
The second thing is we have a public safety organization that works closely with these organizations, with Calvert Cliffs, with Dominion, and we hired a renowned risk management specialist out of Washington, D.C. a couple of years ago, and he works on risk scenarios and updating plans. That's what he does all the time. And so that's just an ongoing activity.
So what does he say about it? I'm sure he's done the worst case scenario. What happens?
And he does have the plans together, working with law enforcement, and they do exercises, they do training simulations, and they do actual. And in fact, we've occasionally ourselves as commissioners, we get involved in some of those exercises, disaster exercises. There's training. I've took the National Incident Management NIMS training, but and we meet at the Emergency Operations Center, and we go through working with the staff, and everybody's working through these scenarios that happen. So there's an ongoing process that happens, and a lot of that happens, and citizens don't really see it. So it may appear like nothing's being done,
right,
but in reality,
is it? Do you think it's going to be? I've heard people say, and this estimate to me sounds outrageous. Do you think it's going to be 15, 20 years before we get another bridge, or bigger bridge, or some kind of thing?
His shoulders just
dropped.
Oh, gosh.
But, well,
I'm not holding you to this. I just want your opinion.
No, we want an answer exactly year's time.
And you're going to be responsible.
You know what month and what year, right?
Right.
I don't have the crystal ball.
Yeah.
I can only say that folks contact congressmen, contact the U.S. senators, and put pressure on them.
Let's talk crystal ball. Where do you want to see what's your big plan for Calvert County? As let's say you win your election, you're going to serve as another term as a commissioner. What do you hope to achieve
on your wish list?
Sure. Here's a couple things. First of all, yesterday was a big day for us. We're the only incumbent. Received the endorsement of 3 papers: the Baynet, the County Times, and the Calvert Recorder.
Okay.
So I'm very pleased with that. I think we're doing real well. What I like to achieve, and a lot of people won't realize that, to me, the biggest thing is to ensure that the type of professional rapport currently on the Board of County Commissioners continues with the next board.
You get along.
Because if that doesn't happen, the citizens are not well served. So after that, I really want to get that budget process more transparent, even more so than it is now. So I've had some proposals, but I didn't have enough votes to help make those kinds of changes.
Right.
And I'm hopeful that as we go forward, folks will not be afraid of trying something new.
Oh, God forbid.
Instead of just doing it because that's the way we've always done
Right,
things.
sure, of course,
well,
of course.
Evan, we got a few minutes left here. Is there anything you want people to know about you as a candidate that maybe they don't know already, or anything you want to get across to them?
Before they go to the polls on November 4th.
It's been, they may know this already, but it's been a real honor serving as a commissioner for 4 years. I take it very humbly and very respectful of the others who are in office with me, even though we don't agree on everything all the time. But there are oftentimes we find that what do you agree on, and let's move forward in that direction. So it's been a real honor. Whether I'm reelected or not, it's been a great honor.
Okay, great.
Nice,
well, listen,
excellent.
Good luck to you. Get out there and vote. His name is Evan Slaughenhoupt. I'm going to spell that for you. It's Slaughenhoupt.
Is that German?
Yes, it is. The original Slaughenhaupts arrived in 1749.
Where?
In Philadelphia. We're just not as prolific as the Smiths and Jones.
Okay.
Exactly
Okay.
right.
That's
exactly.
right. So,
Excellent.
listen, if you like what he's done in the last term and you think he should have another go at it, remember his name and get out there and vote and cast your ballot.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
It's 11 minutes in front of 8 o'clock, 7:49. Let's check the road, see what's going on.